So in this Battletech Tactics podcast, we are visiting the Vindicator. Now, when I think of a specialized mech, or I think of a support mech, and I would classify the Vindicator as a support mech, generally, and part of it is my playstyle, I think of something that takes all of its tonnage, takes all of its armament, and dedicates it to something very, very focused, very, very specific. Perfect example would be like the longbow, a long-range missile boat. Other examples might be an autocannon boat. Or we see this if we're looking at total warfare, the various vehicles, some sort of hover support that's going to take everything for the weight, pump it into speed, give it a couple of weapons to harass, and it's going to support and be focused in very one dedicated area. Well, the Vindicator, I consider it a support mech because while it doesn't focus in any one area, in terms of Battletech ranges and the weaponry, it has something to do in each category. It has something to do in each criteria. So I define the ranges as long range, extreme long range, something like an AC-2. Long range, where we have the LRM missile packs. Then we move into medium range with medium lasers. Then we move into short range, where we've got small lasers, machine guns, 1 or 2 hexes away. I classify this as danger close. And then we move to point blank where you're charging, you're brawling, you're kicking, and you're making physical attacks to drive your tonnage. The Vindicator has something to do in all of these areas. Now, we also see this with, of course, a lot of assault mechs. We see this with some heavy mechs on there where literally you have so much weight and armor and tons and weapons that you have an answer to everything. But look at the battle value that it has. And a lot of these heavy and assault mechs, you're blistering with weapons, and we looked at this in the previous podcast up there on my archive. You've got to manage heat on there. So just because you have 6 or 7 of a type of weapon, and examples like the Awesome. And I love the Awesome. It's one of my favorite mechs. I've got 3 PPCs. Can I chain fire all 3 every single turn? Maybe if I'm hooked up to like a coolant truck or something on there. So just because you have all these weapons, or you have weapons at multiple brackets, doesn't mean you can utilize them effectively every single turn. The Vindicator can. The battle value of the Vindicator is where it shines, and it's about, BV is about 1,000, a little over 1,000, somewhere in there. And we add in jump jets. Second side question, sub-question, would you play a light or medium mech without jump jets? Maybe a light mech if it's so insanely fast, like the Locust, but then we can look at other insanely fast mechs and put on jump jets. But that's kind of a side question. So we're at long range. I'm going to start off with the long range missile pack on there. It's not a 20, it's not a 15, it's only a 5, but it's something to start putting downrange on the table. We're also going to then add or switch to the PPC. That is the primary armament of the Vindicator. 10 points. That's something that if you are firing it every single turn and you can cut down on your modifiers. We see this where Battletech is a constant give and take of modifiers. You're moving, you're at range, you're trying to stay far enough away, you're trying to keep in your good range bracket, move out of my range brackets, you're trying to utilize cover. Likewise, I'm trying to make the decision, am I going to walk, am I going to run, am I going to jump if that's an option? Can I be in cover? Can I catch you out of cover? And there's this battle where we give and take of modifier stacking until we arrive at the 2-hit number for me. The Vindicator only has 1 PPC, so we don't have redundancy. Redundancy is where you have 2 or multiples of some similar weapon bracket. This is why the longbow is so effective, because it's going to soak you with those missiles. That's great. I want that, but we're talking tonnage here. You can't have everything on a medium type mech or even a heavy mech. You can't have everything on there. There's going to be concessions to be made. So the fact that I have 1 PPC, if I can walk or if I cannot be moving, so I want to be in cover, if I can catch you walking or catch you not in cover, I'm firing that potentially every turn. That's 10 points of damage. That's pretty serious on there. I mean, I never want to eat any damage, but that's going to be able to possibly cripple light mechs. It's going to put some hurt on a medium mech. And the heavy and assault mechs, yeah, I could shrug it off, but I'm not going toe-to-toe with your Vindicator. I've got other bigger mechs, other big tactical assets, tanks and things coming at me. I still don't really want to eat that lone PPC. So that is an interesting mount on there. Then as we get closer, so now we're going to start to begin to approach the ranges, the under range of the minimums of the PPC and the LRMs. We're going to switch to the medium laser. We're going to switch to the small laser on there. And then finally, when we get to that point blank, it is an option. It's got a fist in there. Start punching away. Something for every bracket on there. So as a support mech, there's certain mechs that you take because you're trying to focus and build a lance, or you're trying to build something specific. A really quick example of that, of one extreme, and there's no right or wrong way to play Battletech. This is up on my podcast archive and over on my blog. The link to my blog is underneath this podcast, depending on the battle value, of course. 2 longbows, 2 archers, multiple LRM carriers, a mix of hundreds, not virtual, literal, hundreds of long-range missiles every turn. Multiple spotters to do this, usually infantry and Karnovs, maybe some locusts, and some other light tactical assets to go out to midfield or your deployment zone to kind of harass you, keep you busy as this massive missile base just pushes forward. And then some sort of blocking anchor units or mechs, might be Warhammer. Usually it's multiple Demolisher tanks, AC-20s, an Orion or Thunderbolt. T-Bolt is another favorite of mine, ready there to block for when you come in. I'm just going to rain down the pain. That is an example of a highly, highly specialized lance list for Battletech. The Vindicator fits in everything, fits in any type of support. You're going to have an answer for it. If you're playing aggressive, where you're going to have your machines and your tanks aggressively moving forward, well, the Vindicator's got something at every range bracket, and it can lay that down. If you're going to play something that's support, you could keep it back, and as your opponent comes into that support area, you've got the long range, you've got the medium, you've got the short, you've got the point blank physical attacks on there. It's got something to do, threatening light, threatening and holding own mediums, and putting a little bit of damage dice on the heavies and the assaults.